Welcome to Wellness Today, a brand new TV show. I'm Frank Caporale, your host today for this show, and I'm here with my good friend, Tracey Gonzalez. How are you, Tracey, today?
I'm doing very good, Frank. It's good to be here with you.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about health. And you know, you're not real able to do anything for anybody worthwhile, even yourself, when you're not healthy. You know, people get terribly sick. They can't feed themselves. People who get nauseous, they can't drink water and stay hydrated. So these are basic things, but we're going to talk about tremendously good things, okay? We're going to talk about things that will keep you in a positive attitude. So tell us about your show, Tracey.
I am really looking forward to this show, Frank, and I really thank you for your encouragement. I am, as you said, Tracey Gonzalez. I'm a licensed clinical social worker in the greater Danbury area, and wellness is very important to me. I work with a lot of people related to issues that they're having with mental health and emotional health, but we know that everything is connected. So it's very important for us to come together each week and have some lively discussions with people in the community, experts in certain fields, about different topics to help others live the life that they want to live in a healthy manner.
Well, you know, I think one of the biggest problems I see on the physical side, okay, is that people are not eating well, okay? And what happens is they go to the doctors with lots of symptoms that are really serious. And doctors have a tendency to give them drugs, which kind of subsides the symptoms, but the cause is still there.
Yes.
And sooner or later, diabetes, heart attacks, strokes are going to catch up with them. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, you're absolutely correct. Everything is connected. Our mental health is connected to our physical health. Many times when people go to the doctor, it's because they have an ailment, they have a pain, something's not quite right. And many times they receive medication that kind of like cover the symptoms, but the root cause, as you said, is still there. So we are going to present several shows on nutrition, and we're going to talk to a couple different experts in the coming weeks to help people to realize that nutrition is very important, eating right is very important. So that is going to be one of our topics.
And hit on the thing about chemistry balance, because, you know, one of the parts of chemistry balance is what you put in your body, what you eat and what you drink.
Yeah, everything's affected. And I'm sure that our viewers can really relate to this. You can probably relate to this, I'm sure, relate to this as well. If you're not eating right, you're a little off. And many times when we go about the day and all of a sudden we feel a little off, we have to take a look at, okay, have I eaten lately? Have I drank lately? Many times we think we're hungry, but we're not really hungry. We just need to quench our thirst. We need to hydrate. So yes, the whole piece, the whole topic on chemical imbalance is something that we are going to touch on. We talk about that quite often when it comes to children, and they have a chemical imbalance, and then there may be a need for medication. The medication is fine in many instances. However, we want to be able to help the children while they're taking the medication to be available to whatever, learn, to be social, to help them get their lives in order in a way where they're available emotionally and mentally to be able to stand up to the task. So as we go forward in the next couple of weeks and we talk about depression, we talk about anxiety, we talk about mood disorders, we talk about just having a bad day, we are going to touch on the chemical imbalance piece.
You know, people years ago used to take an aspirin for a headache with a glass of water. Now they take it with a sip of water. Sometimes they take it without water. And the doctors will tell you the water might do you more good than the aspirin is doing you.
There you go, Frank. There you go. That's a good point. It really is. And so we're going to talk about that too. We have a lot of things we're going to talk about. One of the topics that we will be covering extensively is mental illness. We're going to talk about mental illness. As I said before, we're going to talk about your nutrition. We're going to talk about substance abuse. We're going to talk about the opiate epidemic that's going on all over the place throughout the whole country. We're going to talk about that in a very extensive manner. We're going to talk about your spiritual health. So there's a lot of different topics that we have that we're going to cover over the next several shows. One that I would like to highlight first is the mental illness piece and depression. That's a topic that's very relevant in today's society. Just want to give you some information on depression. According to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, major depression is one of the most common mental disorders in the United States. And we were talking before about putting a Band-Aid on something. We have to get to the root of that. Why is that?
Well, it's because of fear, okay?
So.
And part of the fear can be on a national level or an international level. But as I say all the time, what happens on the other side of the world might not affect you personally, so what are you worried about? And 60% of what we worry about never happens anyway. And so that's a big problem in itself, to condition yourself. The other thing is that it's not the end of the road. When the doctors told me that I had 4th-degree cancer, they were more nervous than I was. I had peace about it, okay? And going back to, again, the nutrition side, I tell people all the time, if it tastes good, spit it out. It's no good for you.
No, that's not encouraging at all, is it? Oh, my goodness.
What I mean is that when I was recovering from cancer, okay, Ronnie used to go down on the deck of the basement and cut this wheatgrass. And she would put it in a juice, and it would come out like a shot glass. And it wasn't great tasting.
Right.
But man, I had enough strength to go through the chemotherapy.
Yeah.
I went to work after chemotherapy, after 8 hours of chemotherapy.
Yeah.
I was the top salesman of the year. If you really want results, you got to do different things.
Yes.
You know the old story, what they say is if you want same results or different results from the same action, that's insanity.
Yes.
You got to change the action.
That's right.
Let's take one of those things at a time, because emotion to me is really important. I see people using negative emotion, and it's really getting them unwound.
Yes, yes.
I just left you an article, I think, which said that 20% of the women in England are depressed.
Yes, yes. I read over that article. It was very informative. You bring up some very good points here. You talked about worrying. You talked about being concerned. And we're also talking about depression. And in our upcoming shows, we want to talk about the difference between major depressive disorder and worrying.
Okay.
Because there is a chemical piece in there that we have to take a look at. A lot of times when family members are diagnosed with major depressive disorder, other family members that don't quite understand will say, come on, snap out of it. What's wrong with you? Snap out of it. But people cannot just snap out of major depression. We're not just talking about having a bad day. We're talking about something that is really plaguing them to the core, and we want to get to the root of that particular problem. So major depression is a disorder that we will be touching upon. Actually, according to the World Health Organization, major depression also carries the heaviest burden of disability among the mental and behavioral disorders. So this is something that's very relevant, and we do want to stay on top of it. I want to just tell you really quick here the criteria, and I'm just reading a bit here in regards to the DSM that the professionals. That's the professional's Bible. That's where we get our diagnosis.
Okay.
So when we talk about depression, we're talking about a period of 2 weeks or longer during which there is either depressed mood or loss of interest or pleasure, and at least 4 other symptoms that reflect a change in functioning, such as problems with sleep, eating, energy, concentration, and self-image. So it's not, as I said before, just the fact that you're having a bad day. There are some things going on that we really have to target physically as well at times, especially when that major depressive disorder is acute. It's very debilitating. So we have to take a look at that. So depression is one of the topics that we're going to be discussing at length. Another has to do with anxiety.
Well, let's stop right there.
Okay.
Because you gave me so much to think about with
Go
this
ahead,
depression.
Frank.
And Yes, I think that we really do have to rethink how we're behaving towards these people. They're victims of a terrible disease, and we're thinking they're lazy. They don't get out of bed until 11 o'clock in the morning. Well, they don't want to face life.
Yeah.
We look at the people on the street that are homeless, and these could be Vietnam vets that never were treated when they came home from the war, okay? And they've seen the most horrible things you could ever imagine in humanity. And they did some horrible things in order to survive.
That's right.
And so we have to slow down and just thank God that's not me. Now, what can I do about it? You know, maybe I can just give that guy a cup of coffee and a donut sitting on the park bench who's depressed to let him know somebody really does care about him.
That's right.
Go ahead with your
That's
other
right.
point.
You know, just to piggyback off of what you're saying, I've had many family members call me on behalf of other family members. You know, so when you're talking about giving someone a donut and a cup of coffee, usually when somebody is struggling with major depressive disorder, they do need somebody else to step in and help them out, you know?
Always.
They need somebody else to advocate for them. Knowledge is key. Awareness is key. And so bringing these different topics to our viewers each week is really going to help them understand themselves and others as well. I talked about anxiety. Listen to these stats here for anxiety.
I'm all ears.
Okay. Anxiety disorders affect 18.1% of adults in the United States. I'm talking about anxiety disorders, and this is according to the National Institute of Mental Health. I'm not talking about just being anxious one day because, I don't know, you have to speak in front of a camera. You know, I'm talking about a disorder that really plagues you on a daily basis, whether you're at work, school, home, in the grocery store.
The same thing?
Anxiety disorders, if you're diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, you're having a hard time functioning in those areas of life. Approximately 40 million adults between the ages of 18 and 54 struggle with anxiety disorders. Not just anxiety disorders. Also, current estimates put this number much higher, not really the 18.1%, really 30%, because many people do not seek help, or they are misdiagnosed, or they just have issues. They don't know that they have issues with anxiety. They think that it's something else. So this is something that we really want to bring to the awareness of our viewers as well. Just real quick here, there was another study that was published in the Journal of Clinical Psychiatry that found that anxiety disorders cost our country, the United States, more than $42 billion a year. And that's almost 1/3 of the $148 billion total mental health bill for the country, for the U.S. So it's significant. This is very important. Anxiety disorders are diagnosed in young people as well as seniors. It does not care about the age that you are. You know, anxiety disorders are real, and they're there, and we do want to bring awareness to our viewers.
Well, you know, I'm not a professional in your arena, but you know how often, even in my sales business, I have to tell people, slow down, don't be anxious, okay? Let them think about the offer you made on their property. Don't keep bugging them, okay? Let me do my job, okay? Let me find out if there's another bid on this property. Let me find out if they're really considering it or they just threw it out and said it's too low.
Right.
Okay? And so often we don't rely on professionals. So you hire an attorney, you hire a realtor, you hire a doctor, but you don't pay attention to what they're telling you. They have so much experience in this field and they see your problem and you want to continue with being hyper about everything.